Yeah, so it's not only me. The fact that Gartner did a research on this multiple times, even as early as last year, and said that on an average, people spend any enterprise would be spending anywhere between $9 to $14 million annually on bad data, is a pretty startling number in terms of how much money is getting lost due to data being incorrect or incomplete or inconsistent in a particular way. And that basically is, if you extrapolate it on a per employee basis and bring it down to the volume of data that you have, it adds up incremental costs. So what happens is when you have incomplete data, then you spend money to fill it up. And then when you fill it up, if that data is incorrect, then you spend money to clean it up. And as you tend to do this, it's a never-ending cycle because you are trying to filter water which is coming in through the tap and not filtering it at its source. So every time as it collects impurities on the way, the more water you're collecting, the more filters you're trying to put in, and that becomes a never-ending story because then you have different types of filters and different types of things that you have to put at the end of the tap, whereas the source of it, if cleansed or if you had accurate data coming in and you know where it was coming from, then it became a lot easier. Now, this term of water or oil, it's relatively easier, but if you actually go down to data, because it's coming from multiple sources, it could come in from social, it could come in from vendors, it could come in from employees, it could come in from emails. So you have structured, unstructured data coming in over a period of time. It becomes a nightmare for people to track the source, go to the source and say, let's get there, make sure the source is correct so that you don't have to spend truckloads of money trying to cleanse data when it comes in.
But how can companies avoid this, though, now that we know? I mean, we all know that it comes in multiple different sources. How can companies avoid this?
Yeah, it is a big nightmare for many companies, and that's why regulatory bodies and governments are enforcing companies to spend on it. Any company, if it has to spend $1, has to think what's the return on the dollar that they spend. So if you look at it, many companies actually don't value the data that they collect because they have not started monetizing that data. So the companies that monetize that data or use that data to generate revenues or profitability to themselves have started focusing a lot on fixing the data that is there in the system. That's because they know that the better data they have, the more money they can make because they've understood how to monetize it. And the biggest examples are financial institutions. And you take banks, for example. So we had banks who used to do opening accounts for years, and one of the banks in Singapore, when we were discussing with them, they said that the accounts in Singapore, you'd be surprised, most of the people were actually born in 1901 and were born in Afghanistan. Now, that's a revelation when you start looking at accounts, because why would be having someone in a bank with so much of people coming in from Afghanistan in 1901? And you look at it and you say, okay, because the person who is entering the data entry at some point of time, not today, when he or she was entering data, the first field they get is it starts with 1900, so they pick 1901 and boom, enter, and then the first city that lands up in the drop-down menu is Afghanistan, so they just press enter and move on. So now you suddenly have volumes of information of accounts that are actually incorrect and also incomplete in some form because you would not have filled in addresses at that time, etc. So now they have to spend money, effort to clean it.